If you think estate planning is something you can put off, I need you to stop what you're doing and listen. Because if you don't have a will or a trust in place, your family could be left with a nightmare, fighting over your assets, losing everything to taxes, or worse, seeing your entire estate tied up in court for years. Welcome back to Reflections in Real Talk. I'm Judy. And if you have kids, a spouse, or anyone you care about, ignoring this could leave them completely unprotected. So let's talk about what you need to do right now. This video is meant as a brief overview. Please contact a licensed attorney to help you with estate planning. Most people don't want to think about death, but here's the truth. If you don't make a plan, the government will make one for you. And trust me, you won't like it. Without a will or a trust, your assets will go through a process called probate. That means your loved ones won't have access to everything right away. No money, no property, nothing. Instead, a court will decide who gets what, and it could take months or even years to sort out. And if you're married or have kids, it even gets more complicated. Do you really want a judge making those decisions for you? A will or a trust, which one is better? A will is a legal document that says who gets your assets when you die. It's simple, it's cheap, but it still has to go through probate. That means delays, legal fees, and a very public process that your family has to deal with while they're grieving. A trust, on the other hand, avoids probate completely. A trust is like a legal container that holds your assets when you pass away. Everything inside the trust goes directly to your beneficiaries. No courts, no waiting, and no stress. If you become incapacitated before you die, a trust also allows someone you trust to manage things for you without needing court approval. A will, it does nothing for you while you're still alive. So which assets are better protected by a will or a trust? If you only have a few assets, maybe a car, some savings, or sentimental items, a will might be enough. But if you own a house, investments, or a business, a trust is the way to go. If your assets go through probate, they can be contested by family members, creditors, or even people you've never met. A trust keeps everything private and protected. So let's get into some of the details. Benefits of a trust: avoids probate. A trust allows assets to be transferred directly to beneficiaries without going through probate, which can be time-consuming, expensive, and public. Unlike a will, which becomes public record during probate, a trust keeps your estate details private. Since trusts avoid probate, beneficiaries receive assets more quickly than they would under a will. A trust can specify conditions for inheritance, such as age-based distributions, educational milestones, or protecting assets from creditors or divorcing spouses. A trust provides for management of assets if the grantor becomes incapacitated, avoiding the need for court-appointed guardianship. Certain types of trust can help reduce estate taxes by removing assets from the taxable estate. Trust can shield assets from lawsuits, creditors, or poor financial decisions of beneficiaries. Unlike a will, which takes effect only at death, a trust can manage and distribute assets while the grantor is still alive. Now let's look at some of the benefits of a will. First is simplicity and cost effectiveness. Wills are generally easier and less expensive to create than trusts. It allows guardianship designations. A will lets parents name a guardian for minor children, which a trust does not cover. Wills can detail funeral arrangements, debt settlements, and personal property distributions. Any assets not placed in a trust can still be distributed according to a will. So which one is better for you? Well, it depends. For small estates who primarily want to name guardians for children, a will may be sufficient. For larger estates or those wanting privacy, avoiding probate, or protecting assets for future generations, a trust is often the better choice. Many people use both a trust and a will, often called a pour-over will, to catch any assets not included in the trust. And when should you create a trust? If you're over 18, you need a will at the very least. But if you own property, have kids, or want to protect your spouse, you need a trust. The best time to set it up? Right now, because the worst estate plan is the one you never get around to making. And how much can you expect to pay? A simple will can cost between $100 and $1,000 depending on whether you use an online service or an attorney. A trust, you're looking at $1,500 to $5,000 or more, but it can save your heirs tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees later. You can also consider signing up for a legal plan, which can help reduce the cost of preparing a trust or a will. You may have heard that you can use a handwritten will. And in some states, that's true. A handwritten will, which is also called a holographic will, may be valid. But here's the problem. If you don't word it correctly, it might not hold up in court. And that means your wishes might not be honored. Worse, family members could contest it, leading to a legal battle that drains your estate. If you want to protect your loved ones, don't rely on a DIY will. Get it done right. Now, who should be your executor or trustee? As we get older, or if somebody is single, the choices we have for somebody to serve as our executor or trustee may be limited. If you don't have someone to be your executor, you can hire a professional trustee like a bank or law firm to manage your estate. Managing an estate can be a lot of work. If you don't want to burden anyone with a job, or if your heirs have their own family and full-time job, hiring a firm to handle your estate could be a valuable service for them to utilize. You don't have to name a firm or an individual when naming a professional fiduciary in your estate planning documents. Please check with an attorney for specific language. You can also include specific preferences or qualifications for the fiduciary, such as requiring experience in healthcare-related expenses or financial management. This approach ensures a qualified professional is chosen while giving your beneficiaries or legal representatives the ability to select someone appropriate at the time of administration. This allows flexibility in the case that the named firm is no longer available, changes in services, or if you want to select a different fiduciary in the future. It can cost a significant amount of money, but it ensures everything is handled fairly and legally. To give you an idea of what your heirs could expect to pay, I looked it up, and this is what I found. Of course, fees will vary by state and the year they are contracted. You can calculate this based on the total value of your own estate. Number one is statutory fees for executors and attorneys, 4% of the first $100,000, 3% of the next $100,000, 2% of the next $800,000, and 1% of the next $9 million. Fees may be higher for complex estates with real estate business interests, tax issues, or family conflicts. Now, some fiduciaries may charge setup fees, minimum annual fees, or fees for extraordinary services such as managing litigation, property, sales, etc. Now let's talk about children and how this impacts estate planning. What if you have one child? If you have one child, you might think you don't need to plan much, but what happens if they inherit everything at 18? Without a trust, they get it all at once, and that can be a recipe for disaster. Instead, you can use a trust to stagger the inheritance, giving them money at 25, 30, or later, so they don't blow it all at once. What if you have no children? Without a will or trust, your estate could go to distant relatives or even the state. If you want to leave your money to friends, charities, or a partner, you need to put it in writing now. Now, what if you have multiple children? Dividing assets evenly might seem fair, but what if one child needs more financial help? A trust allows you to distribute assets fairly, not just equally. You can also set up different rules for each child so they get what they need when they need it. How can you protect your spouse if it's your first marriage by using a trust? There are several kinds of trusts, and I won't cover them in depth. Again, you can talk to an attorney. But just to give you an idea, here are some options that are available. First is the revocable living trust, which is the most common for first marriages. It's best for young or middle-aged couples building wealth together. Next is the joint revocable living trust, which is best for couples with shared assets and a unified estate plan. Number 3 is a separate revocable trust, which is best for spouses with significant individual assets or different inheritance goals. Number 4 is a marital trust, AB trust, or QTIP, qualified terminable interest property trust. This is best for high net worth couples or those wanting to protect inheritance for children if one spouse dies. And let's talk specifically about that. What about second marriages? How can you protect both your spouse and your children in your second marriage? Second marriages can get messy if you don't plan ahead. If you leave everything to your spouse, there's no guarantee they'll pass it to your kids. They could remarry, change their will, or even disinherit your children. But a trust can fix this. You can set up a marital trust so your spouse has access to assets while they're still alive. When they pass, it all goes to your kids. A trust can ensure your spouse is taken care of while also protecting your children's inheritance. The QTIP trust allows your spouse to use your assets but ensures the money ultimately goes to your children after they pass away. Here are some key features of the QTIP trust. Income for life. The surviving spouse receives all the income generated from the trust for the rest of their life. No access to principal unless allowed. The surviving spouse cannot access the principal, the trust's main assets, unless the trust document permits it. When the surviving spouse dies, the remaining trust assets go to the final beneficiaries, often the children of the first marriage. Estate tax deferral. The trust qualifies for the marital deduction, deferring estate taxes until the surviving spouse dies. Control by the grantor. The person creating the trust, the grantor, decides who receives the remaining assets after the surviving spouse passes away. And here's a little personal perspective. While you're doing your planning, write your own obituary. What do you want to be remembered for? Maybe this will spur you on to knock off some of those great items on your bucket list. And lastly, when you're thinking about your heirs or your children, please clean up your own house. Don't leave them a home filled with clutter that they're going to have to spend hours, days, months, or years cleaning up. This can be a huge burden, especially to working families with children and other responsibilities. And here's a final warning. Get your estate plan in place. If you don't have a will or trust, I want you to stop making excuses. Life is unpredictable. If you die tomorrow, do you really want to leave your family in chaos? Do you want the government to decide who gets your money? Do you want your kids to lose their inheritance to legal fees, taxes, or bad financial decisions? You don't have to be rich to have a trust. You just need to be smart. The choice is yours. Either protect your legacy now or leave a mess for your loved ones later. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with somebody who needs to hear it. And if you have questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll see you next time on Reflections and Real Talk.